Hey guys, it's Ani, and today I wanted to share with you guys a little bit of information that I've learned about taking care of tomatoes over the years. Okay, so the first thing that I want to show you and talk to you about are taking care of pruning and taking out suckers on your tomato plant. Um, I'm one of those type of people that think that the suckers, that leaving a couple might not be a bad idea. You'll have some people that will grow a tomato just with one stem going up, and that's okay too. I think there's a little bit of a debate going on about that. But if you were to leave tomatoes without pruning them, essentially they would just kind of sprawl about, and then they would, like the stem would fall on the ground, and then it would even create new roots, probably most likely in the soil. And then it would just keep growing and growing and sprawling, and then you would have tomatoes basically on the soil level, which can be really bad actually. And then having your leaves exposed to the soil like that can also cause disease sooner too. So I think it'd be interesting to see like an experiment, and maybe I'll do it one of these times, where you don't prune tomatoes and see how many tomatoes you get, but also how big they are compared to not doing that. So anyway, maybe I'll think about doing that. But let's look at this tomato plant here real quick. So here's the main stem right here where I'm pointing. This is a branch coming off, and then this is a sucker right here in the armpit of the plant. So what you usually want to do is just pluck those off. So I'm going to let a few of them go, so I'm just going to pluck this one up here. It's real small still. I'm going to show you a bigger one over here on this tomato plant. So as you can see, right there is the sucker coming out. So here's the main stem, here's the branch, here's the sucker. So I am going to go ahead and remove it, and this one's small enough where I could remove it and snap it off with my fingers. If they get bigger, it might be a good idea to do a nice clean cut with some scissors or clippers. But this one is just going to come off just like that. And actually what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to put it in some water and root it and make a whole new plant, because you can do that with the suckers. And because I'm going to have some lettuces that are going to come out of the green stalk soon, and this is a type of tomato that is an early producer. It's called the 4th of July. So I think that in my area I would be okay with getting away with this plant and getting some harvest by the end of fall. Okay, so if you're new to growing tomatoes, there are two types of tomatoes. There's determinate and then there's indeterminate. So your indeterminate ones are going to do just like I was talking about earlier, and just keep growing and growing and growing and vine up and keep going. Whereas determinate ones are going to just reach a determined height, produce all of its tomatoes at one time, and then essentially be done for the season. Here is an example of a determinate tomato, and actually this one is a dwarf type of variety. So this is part of the dwarf tomato project, if you've never heard of it. It's relatively new, maybe over the last 6 or 7 years, maybe longer. I could be wrong on that. You might want to do some research on that. But anyway, these are great tomatoes for containers especially, and a lot of determinants usually are. But this is what it kind of looks like, and it gets bushier than a normal indeterminate. And so on this one, I'm not going to need to prune it. Sorry for the airplane noise in the background. I live really close to an airport. But anyway, yeah, so you won't need to do the same kind of pruning that you do on an indeterminate on a determinate like this one. So I was talking to one of my good friends the other day, and she's new to growing tomatoes, and I was trying to tell her over the phone how to plant a tomato plant, like a new start. And I feel so bad. We live kind of a couple hours away, so I'm not able to just hop over to her house and help her plant her tomatoes. So I had to try to explain it, and it just got me thinking, well, maybe I should try to explain this in a video. And I feel sad that I didn't take you along with me when I was originally planting these tomatoes so I could show you better. But I'm going to try to explain it with the tomatoes being bigger at this point. Okay, we're gonna take this one and we're gonna pretend like this is a new tomato start and it's a lot smaller, okay? So let's just say this is in a little grow pot that you had that you started seed, and we want to go ahead and plant this tomato plant. So what I would do with a little tomato plant is I would clip off all these bottom leaves right here. Just clip them off, just, you know, pinch them off, whatever. And then I would bury the stem as deep as possible. So let's just say I clip off all these and then I'm gonna put the soil like right there. And it's just gonna have this top. So that's how you should plant your tomato plants when you're first putting them in the soil. Because what's going to happen is that stem is going to continue to produce roots for the plant, and it'll just make a stronger root system for you. Let's talk about watering tomatoes. So this is something that I'm still trying to learn myself and figure out in my own area and my growing conditions. So it really just depends on where you live, how hot it gets where you are, and whether you're growing in containers versus in the ground. Essentially in the ground, your tomatoes are most likely going to be able to get more moisture that way, whereas in a container, it can dry out a lot quicker. So for me here in the beginning, like it's end of or middle of May right now, I'm probably watering every, I don't know, 3 to 4 days, and it depends on how much rain we get. And it's very important to deep water your tomatoes. You really want the water get down to the roots as far as it can go, so that those roots can keep stretching and growing down into the ground. And then with containers, you're most likely going to need to water pretty often, especially if you live in a hot area. Like in our area last year, and this is not necessarily the norm, but last year we got up into the hundreds, like 107 one day, which was just insane. So that was a type of situation where I had to water every day, and that's not something I want to do, but with my container situation, that's just what I have to do, just to make sure that the tomatoes stay cool and moist. So one thing you want to be careful with though is you don't want to overwater your tomatoes, because you can cause splitting, and you don't want to underwater your tomatoes either. So it's just like trying to find that perfect balance. So with tomatoes, especially after a big rain, let's say it's been really dry and then it's like rains really hard, most likely you're going to get splits in your tomato, especially if you grow heirlooms like I do. So you essentially, if that ever happens, you want to try to come out and harvest those tomatoes before a big rain like that happens, to minimize the cracking. One of the best times that I like to harvest tomatoes is really early in the morning before watering, or at least after 5-ish p.m. Because you want a good tasting, flavorful tomato, and if you pick it right after watering, it's going to have a watery taste. Okay, real quick, last thing, let's talk about staking your tomatoes. So this particular type of tomato, is an indeterminate. So I actually have this with a stake in it. And then as it grows along, I'm going to keep attaching it to the stake. Usually, you can also use cages. People kind of prefer different things. A lot of people like to use tomato cages for determinate plants. A lot of people like to stake their tomatoes. Just kind of figure out what works best for you and what works best for your area, because you might live in a very windy area and it might be better for them to be staked up. But with some of these, I already had tomato cages, and I've been using these for the last 5 years, and I haven't had any issues with using tomato cages. Just up to you what you prefer. Well, that's it for my tomato tips. I hope you got something out of it and learned something new. And if you have any advice for me, I always love to get new advice, so put it in the comments below. If you did enjoy this video and learn something, please give it a like. I'd appreciate it so much. But you guys have a wonderful week, wonderful day. God bless. Until next time.